Hello everybody, great to see you. Thanks for tuning in. I'd like to share with you, recently I just celebrated my 29th year wedding anniversary with my husband. And I've known my husband for 40 years, since I was in 8th grade, most of all of my life. I cannot believe that. And wow, what a ride we went on. Woo! It was a crazy roller coaster ride, highs and lows and all kinds of things. I'd like to share with you today what I have learned after being married for 29 years. You know, most of the women, we like to control our husband. And I'd like to share with you a little bit today. Maybe there may be a way to do it, but perhaps not in the sense where you think that we can control them in a humanly manner. I know sometimes as wives, you know, husbands and wives, we can get frustrated with each other, impatient, a lot of miscommunication with each other. We love each other. That's why we got married. We wanted to live a life together and grow old and have kids and wrinkles and gray hair, the whole shamil. But you know, with two imperfect people living day in and day out throughout the years, wow. That can be pretty challenging with all of our different idiosyncrasies and our personalities can clash. Wow, if you're blessed that you just can get along, your personality is just a natural good fit, God bless you. That is amazing. But for some of us, just the difference between men and women, there can be quite a bit of frictions day in and day out throughout the marriage. And how are you who are in a relationship dealing with the stay-at-home time with this whole coronavirus? I know I've talked to some people who are married and they are just not used to being at home with their spouse day in and day out. Of course, you know, one or two of the people, they go out to work, they come home later, so they have space from each other. You know, we all need a little bit of space, right? Too much of cabin fever within the same house, in the same room. Wow, we can just push each other's buttons and just trigger all kinds of things, right? So anyways, in this video, I hope that you may have some type of a little encouragement today when I just talk about marriage or in general in relationship that you're in with that special someone. And I'd like to share with you what it says in Proverbs. You know, most women, we can sometimes get frustrated with our husbands, right? Because we could get a little impatient. We expect them to read our minds and we just assume a lot of things about them. And that's where I think we can get a little, we can have a little friction with one another. But listen to what it says in Proverbs 21 verse 9. And it says, "It is better to dwell in a corner of an attic than with a quarrelsome wife." Wow, do some of you men agree with that? If you have that nagging, quarrelsome wife, it's just better to dwell in the corner of that attic rather than to hear her nags and complaints all day long, right? It is the worst thing you can do when you want to control your husband. Let us not nag at them. It's just complete wasted energy and it just frustrates us and it does not make us or does not beautify us at our best, at our core. But it says in Proverbs 12:4, it says, "A wife of noble character is her husband's crown. She who brings shame decays his bones like a cancer to his bones," right? So do you want to bring cancer to your husband's bones, or do you want to be that crown that he just looks up and he just puts you on that pedestal? It's one or the other. And Proverbs 31, it says, "A virtuous wife brings him good, not harm." So sometimes we try to mold our husband to be a certain way so that we can get him to do things around the house perhaps, or, many different other scenarios. But it says a virtuous wife bring him good, not harm. So instead of nagging at your husbands or complaining or wishing this or wishing that, let us instead try not to bring him harm. Just really try to take care of him and let him feel your nurture and your love and your support and your confidence in him. That is what you need, that is what he needs as a wife that supports him, that can lift him up, and that he can be that man that you truly desire within your heart. And then it says in Proverbs 27:15, a nagging wife is like water dripping on a rainy day. Compare it to a Chinese water torture. It's torturing to the husband. Drip, 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 drip. I mean, that's how he sees a nagging wife. Just always drip, drip, drip. It really is torturous, and you wonder why he just wants to keep his arm's distance from you. Or maybe sometimes he just tunes you out because we tend to not really communicate, but just vent out our frustrations and hopefully blink in that he will change right away because we want to control him. Again, if we want to control our husband, it is not in the manner of nagging or complaining to him. And I like to read you this Bible verse that says in Ecclesiastes 4:9-12. And this is the importance of 2 is better than 1. And it says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them. Also, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. You know, some of us as individuals, imagine being in a 3-legged race. And here you are, husband and wife, and you're tied up your legs with one leg out and the other tied together with a string around it. And you're about to run this 3-legged race together. Can you imagine if the wife wants to run fast, but the husband just chills and wants to run slow? You are not in pace running this race together, this journey of life and the holy institution of marriage that God has created. Rather, we can be self-centered, think about me, myself, and I, not care about the other person, say to the other person, hurry up, you're going too slow, come on, pick up your pace. Or the one going slower, you're going too fast, hold on, wait for me. You know, you're just missing each other, missing the mark. But what ties together as a couple, husband and wife, God is the glue. And the string that ties the legs together is God's loving spirit. And eventually, over time, when we learn to walk together in that 3-legged race, we learn to walk in pace. And that is a learned thing over time. It doesn't happen naturally. But as we stay in the commitment of the marriage, the holy matrimony of marriage, and to try to be a good example to others of what a good marriage looks like, let us have that open and willing heart to learn only through God's Spirit to walk in pace together with your spouse in the 3-legged race. God is the glue. You can't do it by yourself. You would only frustrate you at the long run. So I hope that encourages you a little bit today about we need each other. We need the support. We need the help. I know there's a lot of things. My husband helps me out with a lot of technical things or financial things or things that go over my head. I just ask him, can you help me with this? I don't know how to do it. So I need him in certain ways. And then he would need me in other ways as well. But let me tell you, it was not like that in the beginning of our marriage. I got married at age 24. He was 26. We both dated one another for 4.5 years prior. So we were in relationship for quite a while. And when I first met him in 8th grade, my husband, I'll just share with you my personal story. And he was just this happy-go-lucky guy, full of life, big smile, full of joy, just carefree. And I just loved about him. I loved the fact that he was just different from other Asian guys that I saw. He wasn't shy, quiet like the other Asians. So that just really captured my heart. It intrigued me. But then little did I know, as some of you know that I shared my story in some of my past videos, I ended up living with my mother and father-in-law. They lived with us for almost 9 years. Well, through that time, let me just mention, it wasn't that bad, just in the sense where we had a language barrier. I couldn't speak Korean well. They couldn't speak English, so my husband had to be the mediator. So that was actually a little blessing in disguise. But through time, I just witnessed the sad hardships that my mother-in-law, she was just a miserable lady, and she just poured out that misery and vented out and complained and constantly nagged that I witnessed to my father-in-law. And after a while, I mentioned to my husband, wow, I feel really sorry for your dad. I constantly hear your mother just complaining and nagging to him. And, I don't speak that much Korean language, but I do know a little bit. And she is just emasculating his balls down to the gutter. She is just stripping off that manhood in him. And it was pathetically sad for me to witness. Then over time, I sadly saw my mother-in-law do this to my own dear husband. She would just use him as a garbage dump truck, just vent out all her negativity and complaints, and he would just take it and listen day in and day out. They just treated him badly over time, treated him like a slave. He was the obedient youngest son, and they just knew how to manipulate him and just knew how to pull all his strings. So over time, his worth and value just really dwindled down. And they just didn't respect my husband in any sense at all. Well, over time, sadly, I saw my husband just lose his sense of self-worth and his manhood. And then I wondered, wow, where did my happy-go-lucky husband that I met years ago, where did he disappear to? The power of words. The women's words, because women like to talk more than men usually. Wow, the power of my mother-in-law's words constantly into my husband's ears, living in our little house here, in our bedroom right next, the wall right up next door. I mean, we were just cramped and it was too much. And my husband, when he lost himself, it was, again, it was just pathetically sad for me to witness this. Then over time, my in-laws ended up moving out after 9 years. But after this time, he was already dealing with his own mental issues, maybe some depression he was going through. He just blocked himself out, to me, to everybody. He was just isolated in his own world. And I thought, wow, as a wife, only wives knows the true story, right? Behind closed doors, what goes on with your husband, your children, your relationship. But in the outside, you have to present yourself, being normal and sane. But it just broke my heart. And I wondered, where did my husband go? And he was just, he would get angry or frustrated and just vent out so much of this negativity that was all festered inside of him. And me being more of a positive person, it was just very extremely challenging for me to live with him day in and day out. I needed my space. I would go constantly on my days off from work to the swimming pool just to be out in nature, to do laps, to be in the jacuzzi. I would go bicycle riding. I needed my space away from all that negativity that I saw from him. But I am not a person who, I'm not one to nag or complain. I've never been a complaining person. So I just kept everything within me. And I ended up over time building up a lot of resentment and bitterness and unforgiveness in my heart towards my husband. I would sweep any kind of things that was bothering me. I would sweep it underneath the rug. And that rug over time would just become so large like a mountain. And all of this unforgiveness, and I was not one years ago to be in tune with my own, be aware of myself, that I just kept sweeping everything under the rug because I'm not one to confront. I hate confrontations. So it was just a lot of unforgiveness that was harboring in there. And I had no idea what was going on. I was just living my life day in and day out. So there were some ups in our marriages and there were some dark valleys. It was really, really tough. But thank goodness for the grace of God. You know, when we honor God in all that we do, and we're faithful and just trying to just be the best person, the best daughter in Christ, son in Christ, wow, his spirit can work wonders in your relationship. You will be in awe. After a while, when I just try to always keep my arm's distance in my heart away from my husband, Andy, God's Spirit spoke to me one day, and I thought, you know what? Rather than being so offended, defensive with him, he gave me the eyes looking through God's perspective of being more curious with Andy, my husband, having more compassion towards my husband, and thinking, wow, how was it like being in his shoes growing up in his household and where he is today? What makes him act in this manner? You know, with men, they bottle and keep things within, and it's hard for them to voice things out. You know, they don't want their manliness to look, you know, dim or down in any way. So I cannot imagine being a man living in this world of ours. But you know, when God gave me the eyes of compassion and curiosity more towards my husband, it's really softened my heart, and it gave me more willingness to draw a little closer to him. Because around that time, my heart was so distant, you know, for a while. And I remember one time when I was watching this one TV episode. It was a makeover show. And there's one lady, her husband passed away. She wanted a makeover, and she was wearing on her necklace her wedding ring. And for some strange reason, it must have been God's Spirit that took a hold of my heart. I was just I was just watching TV, and it just triggered something in my mind, my heart, my spirit, that I saw this lady wearing her wedding ring on her necklace. It dawned on me, I did not feel loved or cherished by my husband, Andy. Over time, we just drifted away. We didn't put that intentionality into really stirring up a good relationship, working at it. We became love lazy, and we just drifted away. And you could become like strangers. You know, you get busy with raising your children or working and life and all kinds of things. So when I realized I didn't feel loved and cherished by my husband, I just started bawling my eyes out. But that was a wonderful breakthrough I had at that moment. I just needed that. And I just said, okay, you know what, God? Just give me, please, the opportune time that I can have a conversation with Andy. Because by then, we were so distant, I couldn't even talk with him. I just was like a mouse. I kept my mouth quiet. I just eventually lost my voice in the marriage. But finally, there was an opportune time. The house was quiet. The kids were at school. And I just spoke to him what has been in my heart. And he was just quiet. He was shocked beyond his wildest dreams. He thought everything was fine. Our marriage was wonderful and it was perfect. But in my heart, I was dealing with a lot of issues that was just harboring up. I should have spoke out more and communicated, but again, I'm not one to confront. I hate the confrontations, and it just triggered all my buttons. I thought he was gonna yell, all kinds of things. But God's grace over time has beautified our relationship. And I continue to choose not to ever really nag at my husband or complain, but rather to edify my husband, to lift him up the best way possible, for me to focus vertically up at God and not to try to please so much my husband, because we as human, we can have this attitude like, no, I'm not going to want to please you. You don't deserve it. I mean, we can have so many different, thoughts and attitudes about it. But my first foremost focus was to please and honor God day in and day out. Just start off small, little by little. And then over time, through prayer, God's grace intervened, and we were able to step and walk closer with each other. And we were able to learn to walk in that three-legged race together in a good, wonderful pace, to enjoy the pace of the journey of our marriage together and in harmony. I hope that encourages you somehow. And if you feel like you're just in the habit of complaining or whining or nagging, I pray that God's Spirit may soften your heart today, that you may open your heart and be willing to become more of the virtuous wife, to take care of your husband the best way you can, little by little, each and every day. Sometimes when we can nag and want to control our husbands so much, the husbands, they respond in different ways. They can respond in anger. You can provoke him for violence. I mean, it can be many different ugly ways. He could be enraged. Or it can be another way. If we continue to nag and just keep provoking him and complaining, he just might eventually lose his confidence as a man, and you partaked and contributed to that part. He may lose his manhood. He may be dealing with his own guilt and shame. Maybe he had issues growing up with his parents, his mother, or society, too much pressure, who knows what. But again, as a wife, I encourage you today, take a step back and breathe and say, how in the world can I help? Can I change over my heart and help my husband and edify him to become the man that God has designed him to be? For your husband is our Heavenly Father's son. And we are to love each other. First love ourselves and then love others. That is God's command to us. And love never fails. Love wins. And only through God's love are we able to look to your husband, your wife, whoever it may be, your partner, through the eyes of God's compassion, his love, and his grace. And that'll give us some hope today to lift up our chins and say, you know what? I might see a little tiny light at the end of that dark tunnel. I've just been having a tough time in my marriage. Maybe some people may know about it. Maybe nobody knows about it. But only you know it and God knows it. And sometimes when you feel like you are so distant away from your husband, or during the stay at home, you are just clashing big time, I just pray you would just find that little inkling of light and hope today and hold on to that with all your might and just trust each and every day that God will do his part as you choose to have that willingness and openness to do what is good and right each and every day, and you will be amazed beyond your wildest dreams. And that's how, like I said, we just celebrated our 29th year wedding anniversary. And again, we went through good times, we went through bad times, we went through ugly times. We faced so many difficult challenges. We faced many unknowns in our life together. But faith capital F, faith has brought us through our journey, season by season, year by year. And I'm just so happy to say proudly, 29 years, wow, to be able to get to the other side of your marriage. In the beginning, we're like rookies. Nobody teaches us how to be a good wife, a good husband, but only going through the experiences are we able to mature, to become wise, to grow, to become more Christ-like in our character today. So I like to share with you advice from Apostle Paul. And he says, faith, hope, and love. Realize you love this man and want the best for him. For love is the greatest. And trust that he will do what is right, your husband, by you through doing what is right by God. Your husband will do that. If he's a believer, if he wants to honor God, he will do right to you because he does deep inside want to do right by God. We have the great hope that God will give him the strength to do it. God will give him the strength. Let him be able to find himself if he lost himself over time. If he was such a workaholic, or if he was so down and out, who knows what issues he may be dealing with. Instead of being that complaining, nagging wife, let us have that love and compassion in our hearts today for him. Take care of him and just give him the power of our good, loving words, encouraging words, supporting words. For words have so much energy. Let us give him the good, positive energy today that he needs. Sounds difficult, right? Our human response is to nag, and we just want to fight, and we just want to choke him out, our husband, and it gets us frustrated. But have strength, ladies, to be the woman in the relationship. For when God created Adam and Eve, he did not make man alone. God wanted to give him that companion, the suitable partner, that wonderful fit, so they're able to walk all the days of their lives together, hand in hand, in harmony. So again, when I said in Ecclesiastes, 2 is better than 1. When 2 lie down, we can keep each other warm. When 1 falls down, the other can pick them up. We need each other. Let's not make our partner our enemy. No, let us make him our best friend, our number 1 encourager, and our supporter in our lives. So I like to share with you at this time, having our anniversary, we're at a good place right now. Praise God for his love, his grace, his mercy, his forgiveness. He can do a number and work on your heart, and he can work on your husband's heart. Just keep praying for your husband and ask God to pray for you, that God would just chisel you, sandpaper any rough edges that you may need, so you can be more softened and be more graceful and loving and kind to your husband. I know it can be hard sometimes, because when my husband was in his negative mode, I just wanted to keep my arm's distance and be in another room or go out. It was so difficult to love the unlovely. There were seasons it was so hard. But I remember there was this time when I heard about the geode rock. Some of you are familiar with the geode rock. On the outside, it looks all dark and crusty and plain and ugly, right? But when you open up that geode rock, inside it's beautiful amethyst and rubies and beautiful crystals. And my husband, I thought when I was having it up to here one time, there was a season I couldn't handle my husband's negativity and his complaints. I thought of that geode rock. Oh, that ugly, crusty. I wanted to keep my distance. It was so hard to love the unlovely. But I said, my husband is a good man. He has the beautiful, good heart, and I know that of him. And I choose to look within that geode rock and look at all that treasure, the beautiful colors of all the crystals. And I'm sure you wouldn't have married a bad, wrong, evil person. Inside your spouse also have these beautiful crystals inside that geode rock. Let's look within, not the outside all the time, but have the patience to look within, and you would find yourself a treasure indeed. I remember when there was a time also when I was struggling, I asked myself that question. If Andy was to get in a tragic, sad car accident, let's say, and he was to lose his legs and become paralyzed, I asked myself that question, would I still love him? Would I still want to be with him as a wife? And again, my husband has the best heart. He is a good man. I've known him since I was in 8th grade. It's not his fault that he had controlling parents that did a number on him. It's not his fault that all these authorities always somehow looked down at him growing up. I chose to look at my husband through the eyes of compassion and love and being more curious. Why is he like this? But I chose to look beyond the outside ugly exterior of that geode rock and look within. He is a good person, full of beauty and life, and he needs my help. He needs my support as a wife. He does not need me to complain and nag. It'll make him worse. It'll make him lose his confidence. He needs me to be his #1 cheerleader. So yes, if my husband was to be in a wheelchair, lose his legs, I would forever be with him to the rest of our days, hand in hand, and choosing to walk in that 3-legged race, in a spiritual manner, learning to grow and live in harmony. This beautiful, abundant life that God's given to each and every one of us. And he's blessed us. It is up to us to be obedient to God's word, to his spirit, to receive God's blessings today. I'd like to share with you to close. I gave to him this card for our anniversary. Butterflies. Butterflies, what a transformation we go through, right? In the beginning, we're like cocoons, but we have to go through the transformation process to become like beautiful butterflies. And God is always working and chiseling our character as his children. And I'd like to share with you what it says in this card. It says, the more our story unfolds, the happier I am that I chose you and you chose me to love and laugh and live with. You are my quiet center, the best part of my world. I love you. Happy 29th anniversary. And then my husband's card, he says,